All right. Well, this is fucking episode 2 of the show files, Parks and Recreation. We did episode 1 last week. We did the first season, which was like 6 episodes. I thought it was pretty dope. Hopefully, people liked it. Hopefully, they're going to listen to this one. For this episode, we're doing the first 6 episodes of season 2 of Parks and Recreation.
Oh, we only did 6 episodes.
That's why when you texted me and said episode 8, I was like, wait a minute. I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
I
It's all
did
good
8.
though. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't matter. But yeah, because that's all I watched. All I watched was the first 6. If I had to watch
Okay,
8, I'd
cool.
been down to do 8, but that's all I watched was 6. So yeah. See, so it's episodes 1 through 6 of season 2. I got some notes right here with me. Overall, pretty good 6 episodes, I thought. There's some like classics in this first 6
Oh,
episodes
yeah.
of season 2.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, this is where you really start getting into the show, and it actually
Yeah.
becomes more appealing.
For sure. All right, so episode 1 of season 2 is Pawnee Zoo. It's directed by Paul Feig and written by Norm Hiscock. And this is a pretty like, I think this might have been actually like one of the first ones I remember ever seeing. This
The
episode.
the open of this season's awesome because she does the parents just don't understand.
Yeah, I have that written down. Yeah, she killed it. And also too, a funny thing I noted that I never noticed before. April's wearing like this like weird looking pink bridesmaid dress at the wedding, to where like it's not even like there's one half of it where she doesn't even have her shoulder through the hole. It's like just hanging off of her armpit. But I thought that was really funny. It almost looked like maybe something that Leslie like at the last minute made her wear. You know what I mean? Like it'll be
Yeah,
cute for the pictures, and April was probably like, "What the fuck?" But yeah,
I read that the character of April was written solely for
you could tell.
Aubrey
Aubrey
Plaza.
Plaza, you can tell. Yeah, because it's out of all the roles she's had, it's probably the closest to actually her. You know what I mean? Oh, one thing
Yeah.
I put. This is the first episode where Chris Pratt is officially main cast. He's in the opening credits.
Oh,
So
yeah,
at
yeah.
this point, they had to probably sign him to a contract, and they had started writing him because he does start to get a lot more screen time and
Well,
development.
they still kind of ease him in slow because like
They do.
these first 6 episodes aren't like crazy full of them or
The
nothing.
first episode, he's like barely in it until like the end of the episode, I think, like right near the end of the episode of the first one. So yeah, the opening is because
Oh, yeah,
Ron
that's when
walks
he.
in and acts like without realizing it, he says the first few lines of parents just don't understand. So Leslie like finishes like damn near a whole verse in the hook. And then what does he say? He's like, somebody's on fire on whatever one of our parks or something like that. But yeah, it's a great opening. Boom. So then after that, obviously there's like the whole controversy about it being, because she does the penguin wedding.
Yeah.
So they go to the zoo and they do this penguin wedding. And after she does this whole wedding, one of the employees there is like, no, that's 2 male penguins. And they're like, oh. So it kind of starts a controversy in town that like Leslie is like trying to convert people or recruit people for like a gay agenda or something like that, low key, because she does like
What
a
kills
gay wedding.
what kills me is like, how can you like let this whole wedding go on? You're like, oh yeah, by the way, now that it's over, that's
It is a
2
bit silly.
dudes.
It is a bit silly to, yeah. Like that's a pretty big like detail. And they're kind of just like, oh yeah, it's 2 men. Still, it's funny though. And the next day, all the gay community in Pawnee is like treating Leslie like a hero. But the almost, I don't say anti-gay, but the more like conservative community is like,
The angelic community.
right. So this is where I think this is the first episode where they mentioned that April has a gay boyfriend who
Yeah.
dates another.
Well, it's not her boyfriend. They just make out sometimes.
It's not her boyfriend. They just make out sometimes, and then that he also has a boyfriend that doesn't like April, or it's just some weird like funny like love triangle thing or whatever. But yeah, so they're talking to Leslie and they invite her to the gay bar, and it's called the Bulge, and I was just like, that's a hilarious. The Bulge is just the greatest. And the funniest thing is that when they say it, the only person who immediately knew what the Bulge was Ron. He was like, that's the gay bar. It's the Bulge. And they're like, what? And he's like, it's down the street from me. But it's just funny that he would be the one to know. And then After that, Leslie reveals that she's been there before trying to pick up guys, but didn't realize it was a gay bar. And that's the
That's
thing
the
you
most
kind of start.
classic.
So that's how I was going to say this. I remember I wanted to bring this up is that obviously in this season they start to move away from Leslie being like cringy and kind of like dim-witted, and more so like she makes mistakes still, but they're more so based off of just kind of like innocence in a way, you know, like she just doesn't realize.
Well, I was reading today that they like kind of rewrote her character after season 1 because they didn't want her to be as like ditzy as she was.
Yeah, it was like a big demand of hers after they. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty cool that they started to do that. I feel like they really start to write her well in this season.
Yeah.
But oh, and then also too, the funny thing is oh, I pointed out that it's at the time that April's love triangle thing probably was like a weird thing on TV, but that's like probably super normal now and like surprisingly realistic, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. And then obviously Leslie also too is like, I don't understand that. It was just kind of funny.
One thing I liked about the episode is like in Donna's like real first exchange and like the whole show.
yeah,
She has one of my favorite lines. She's like, "You gonna turn someone tonight, Leslie?"
yeah,
When she gets like all dressed up for the
right. Oh man. Oh, they have the Nope Hope thing where they create like a picture and it's the old school Obama Hope picture, but it says Nope. And I think that I've also too seen people have like shirts of that, the Nope shirts and shit. So it's kind of funny. Oh, there's a funny line when they go to the Bulge where Tom's talking, and he's like, "It's crazy because I'm seeing a lot of dudes from City Hall here." He goes, "Actually, now that I think about it, they're seeing me here too." Oh man, it's hilarious. Bam, and I didn't note that Donna started getting more lines and stuff, so they're starting to develop a lot of the side characters and stuff. This episode has the debut of Joan Calamezzo, played by Mo Collins, the talk show host.
Yeah, joke.
Her first episode. It's so funny. Oh man,
She's an awesome side character throughout the show.
for sure. She's in a lot of episodes. I think I looked it up. It's like over 20 episodes she's in out of the whole series. I wrote down oh, Leslie's constantly battling against citizens who only care about like their own vested interests, uh, as opposed to her like being for the greater good. And it was like I wrote down like examples like Joan just wants views, so she kind of just like exposes Leslie, and the same thing for that Marcia, the anti-gay, like Christian family values chick. It's she just had and then like spokespeople at whenever they have those meetings, the spokespeople will always just be like they'll be like bringing up stupid trivial things like I don't like this in the park, and they'll like call her an idiot.
Dude, those are some of the best scenes.
Yeah, they're so funny. Oh, this is where they reveal that Andy's living in the pit. It's like towards the end of the first episode.
Yeah, because he comes in with like a suit, acting all like.
Yeah, but they kind of reveal towards the end that he's living there. I was like, I wrote down that that's kind of poetic justice for like how he like did Anne in the end of their relationship.
Yeah.
He said his quote that I liked. He said, "The hardest part of living in the pit, keeping your suit pressed, and rats."
Well, there's a episode later, and I don't remember which one it is, but I know it's from this section today. He's like, "The pit works in mysterious ways."
I think I have that written down too as a quote that I like. The pit works.
I can't remember which episode it's in.
Back together with Anne.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. Shit, what else did I? Oh, this is where they kind of start building the Anne and Mark love interest thing. I mean, they kind of tease it in the first season, but they actually like it ends with them like kind of agreeing to do to go on a date.
Yeah.
And then the ending where Leslie's taking the penguins in her car. She's like misting them. It's so funny. I wrote down some trivia too about that episode. One of them was the writers. Okay, so the writers decided to make episodes more topical in the season 2 as opposed to like just like narrative story approach and character development. That's why they did the first episode being about gay marriage. And then if you notice, a lot of the episodes kind of have like a general topic or theme to them in season 2.
Yeah.
And then oh, this is a cool fact. So this episode was inspired by the real life pairing of Harry and Pepper, a pair of romantically involved penguins at the San Francisco Zoo. The real life penguins had separated from each other shortly before the episode aired, which resulted in press coverage that the pair broke up. So it's like loosely based on a real The writers felt that penguin marriage was a good way to connect Leslie with the topic of gay marriage due to zoos falling under the Parks and Recreation Department jurisdiction. It's clever little writing. And then the writer didn't intend for the episode to take a stance on the gay marriage topic, wanted to focus more on Leslie's character development and just making a funny episode. And the ending wasn't originally intended to read as Leslie making like I'm for gay marriage. It was supposed to just kind of be her like standing up for herself and being like, there wasn't even any intention behind the wedding. It was just like a cute thing she was trying to do.
Yeah. She even says it like multiple times throughout the episode.
Yep. For sure. Let me scroll down. Oh, there's a couple more trivias I had for this one too. April's here. Remember when Leslie shows up to the gay bar earlier in the episode and they bring her on stage? April, while she's introducing her, she's like, "This is Leslie Knope and she's here to recruit you." That's actually a line. Have you ever heard of Harvey Milk? He's like the first openly gay politician. They like made movies about him and stuff. Well, he was a famous line because everybody would always say that he was like trying to recruit people for like the gay agenda. And he had one time he had a press conference thing, and that's how he opened up. He's like, "I'm Harvey Milk and I'm here to recruit you." So that line was a reference to that. And then this episode won an award at the what is it? The GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Individual Episode in a Series Without a Regular LGBT Character. So it won like an award for that. So that's pretty cool. And then the last trivia I have is Ron's look from here forward remains unchanged, with his hair parted on the left and rarely wearing a blazer or suit again. Later in the series, he'll refer to getting the same haircut in his whole life, despite it being parted on the other side for the entire first season. It's an interesting little thing.
Yeah, he doesn't really change much.
Yeah. So like overall, the first episode was just like it's a lot of like Leslie character development, but they also kind of start to like give other people more mic time and shit like that, like other little side characters.
Yeah, I like how like they took the time to like focus this episode a lot on Leslie though to start off.
They're like, this is the star of the show, so let's build her. For show. Episode 2 is it's like a fan favorite. Actually, it's usually voted amongst like one of the best episodes in the whole series. Is The Stakeout, directed by Seth Gordon and written by Rachel Axler.
Yeah, it's a good episode.
Really good episode. It's the debut of the character Dave Sanderson, played by Louis C.K. Oh, and this is a thing I noticed when I was looking this up. It aired on my 18th birthday, September 24th, 2000 and something. I can't remember. 2009. 2009. Oh shit.
This the episode with Ron Turnia, and it's hilarious.
Oh yeah.
It has one of the best side plots.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. And it's such a simple side plot. Like it doesn't take them anywhere but the office, really. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like literally just him sitting in a chair, but they build so much comedy around it. It's insane. The opening sequence when they're having breakfast. Leslie's sweet tooth is unreal. She puts whipped cream in the coffee, eats a spoonful of just whipped cream, and says, "That's good coffee." It's so great. And she's also got like maple syrup and like chocolate syrup and shit like all around while she's eating breakfast. It's insane. So this
Did not have such a hard sugar crash.
Oh, I know. Yeah. This is the episode where they're doing the community garden in the pit.
Yeah.
At the beginning, Leslie and Tom are like sitting there, like Leslie's basically doing all the work and Tom's just kind of chilling. And there's a funny bit where he's lying to her about the scientific names of vegetables and plants. And she's like, "Hey, what's the scientific name for these tomatoes?" And he was like, "Oh, those are Soldier Boy Tellums." And then he's like, "Those are ditties. Those are Bone Thugs and Harmoniums. Those are Ludacris's." It's so great. Like Leslie just eats up all his bullshit.
Yeah. It's like that episode where she's like, "Write that down, Tom," and he's like writing none of it down.
Yeah.
And he spews some random bullshit back at her.
Yeah. They kind of do a lot of shit about Leslie having a sweet tooth in this episode because there's a monologue near the beginning where she's talking about how she ate a brownie because they discover that there's a pot leaf in the garden. So they start talking about it. She's like, "I was at a party once and I ate a brownie and I was freaking out." She's like, it ended up just being no pot in it, just an insanely good brownie. I was like, she's a fool with them brownies and them sweets, dude.
Oh my
Straight up.
god.
This episode really starts the relationship between Ron and April, as far as like
Yeah.
them having like any type of like a friendship or whatever.
The scene where he's like, "Can you bring me my lunch?"
Yeah.
Yeah, you want me to order you something? Or he's
Wait,
like,
no,
no,
it's right there.
right there. It's some
Oh,
kind of like power trip or something.
yeah. There's a lot of good bits with like different people walking in and like talking to Ron, and like he's just straight faced and won't move his chair or anything. It's so great. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is an episode. I noticed a lot of people. There's a kind of a trend sometimes where people will tell an Andy story, and it's really funny. Even though like it's you can see Chris Pratt doing whatever they're talking about because Anne's talking has a story about how she would take Andy to movies, and he would spend the whole time guessing the ending of movies. I just thought that was kind of funny. And I've noticed a lot of people too, like I remember it from the show, people will be like, Andy did that. Like it's just, I don't know. It's like a funny thing I noticed.
Yeah, that
Uh
sounds exactly like something Andy would do.
for sure. Mark's screen time so far, and like I've at least in the first two episodes was like very limited. You could tell they were kind of slowly like phasing. I mean, it picks up a little bit in a couple later episodes. There's a little more
Yep.
focus on him, but you could tell they were kind of preparing for him to maybe be.
Well, because I also read that it was always kind of meant for him to like leave the show and come back.
Yeah, be one of those characters.
But then the success of the two new people at the end of the season were just
Right. Without,
too
yeah,
high.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Let's see.
This has one of the best quotable lines in the whole show too.
What is it?
When she like comes back and she has like her dad's car. She's like, "Are you ready to go?" He's like, "Of course I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
I'm Ron fucking Swanson."
fucking Swanson. Yeah, that's great. What is it? Mark's old life as a player is everything Tom wants to be. He's always like pointing out how like he's like, damn, what Brandanowitz. It's so funny. I put Aubrey Plaza might be the best modern deadpan comedic actor. She's just so good at being like deadpan, like straight face, monotonous, like blah blah blah. Like the shit she says is so good. Oh, Andy and Leslie kind of start developing their little friendship. And this one, because she discovers that he's living in the pit, and they go get food, and they're like talking, and she kind of almost helps him. Like, I mean, they kind of help each other almost like get past a little bit of an obstacle. So it was kind of good.
When he eats that candy necklace,
Yeah,
and she's like,
Yeah.
"There's a string in there."
yeah.
Yeah, not mine.
He's like, no, yeah. Oh man. I said this is a weird observation. It said it was strange seeing Louis C.K. and Aziz share screen time, considering they both had speaking out allegations.
Yeah,
Thought that was kind of a strange little thing. Leslie had a line when she's trying to get Tom out where she says, because he keeps saying it's a police matter. And she was like, oh, it's a police matter, but it doesn't seem to matter to the police.
he's like, "Okay, that's a good one."
He's like, that's a good one. Yeah, he even says so. This was a cool, one of the last shots. It said, shot of dirty Andy seeing Mark kiss Anna's great. Maybe Andy's lowest moment visually represented in the whole series, because he's literally living in the bottom of a pit of dirt. And he's kind of like, if you think about it, it's kind of the lowest he gets, because he kind of throughout the series has a slow like incline until
he has
like, on top of the world low key towards the end.
Yeah, pretty big come up.
For sure. Overall, yeah, it's kind of an iconic episode. Like, it's usually, if you see lists of like best episodes of Parks and Rec, it's usually near the top. This one, just a lot of funny moments, and the whole idea of them. Oh, and we didn't point out too that because they do a stake out there trying to catch the kid that's planting the pot, and that's what you think at first, but really Leslie's kind of using it as an opportunity to spy on Mark and Anne's date.
Yeah, because they never find any pot or whatever afterwards.
Never find any pot.
So, but one thing I wrote down was like Dave's awkwardness suits Leslie so much.
Yeah, I think I noted that out on another episode. It was really a good, even though it was only a temporary pairing of the two, it was a good pairing. They have a good chemistry that played off of each other. Had a little bit of a trivia for this. It says Offerman, who's the guy who plays Ron, obviously, who barely moves and is often quiet throughout the episode, said he used to learn humor and silence while serving as an altar boy and a lector at his church. Offerman said, I had a cousin in the congregation, and I would speak with the utmost august stoicism, and everyone would think I was an effective speaker, but he knew I was being facetious. He'd get in trouble for cracking up. So that's kind of how he learned to do like quiet but good comedy. And
Yeah, like the deadpan, like
yeah, it's interesting. The confrontation between Tom Haverford and Dave. Oh, because there's a part where he thinks Tom is breaking into the van while they're on the stakeout. That's how they introduced Dave Sanderson, Louis C.K.'s character. And he's
yeah,
arresting Tom because he thinks he's breaking into a van. And it said the confrontation between Tom
Mark
Haverford
and Ann called.
yeah. Yeah, because they come home from their date and they see they don't know it's Tom and they see somebody breaking into the van. The confrontation between Tom Haverford and Dave Sanderson before Tom's arrest in his own van mirrored the real life arrest of Henry Louis Gates, a black Harvard University professor who was arrested after police mistakenly thought he was breaking into his own home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The arrest received national attention. When a police officer asked Gates to step outside, he replied, I'll speak to your mama outside, which was parodied in the stakeout. When Dave asked Tom to step out of the van, he responded, I'll step out of your mama's van. That's a funny little
tidbit.
It is revealed that Tom's birth name is Darwish Sabir Ismail Ghani. This is the real name of Aziz Ansari's real life cousin Darwish, whom he mentioned during his stand-up special Aziz Ansari Intimate Moments for a Sensual Evening. Leslie
Yeah, it's funny
Fine,
because he talks about changing his name in the secret episode.
because he's like, nobody would ever take with somebody with my name serious, so I changed my name to Tom. And then she points out and she goes, but Barack Obama, and he's like, well, yeah, before he wasn't a thing before I made my decision.
Yeah,
It was kind of funny. Leslie finds marijuana growing in the community garden she started in the pit. They stake out the pit, hoping to find the culprit, but go home empty-handed. However, later in the season, Leslie hosts a picnic for the former Parks Department directors, during which one of them states that he's planted marijuana in various community gardens, suggesting he's the criminal Leslie sought but could not catch.
that's like way later too.
Yeah. Episode director Seth Gordon also directed episodes of The Office, Modern Family, and Atypical. Also directed the first Horrible Bosses movie. Episode writer Rachel Axler also wrote episodes of How I Met Your Mother, New Girl, and Veep, and has won Emmys for her work on The Daily Show and Emmys for her production work on Veep. So we got some bangers on the cast. You feel me?
Yeah,
on the crew. Overall, like second episode, like I said, yeah, it's iconic. Whatever. They start building. That's another theme too. Is while they're building Leslie even more, they also are slowly building all the side characters and supporting characters.
Yeah, a lot of the side characters had moments in that episode.
Yep, for sure, for sure. Episode 3 is Beauty Pageant, directed by Jason Woolner and written by Katie Dippold. Some notes and observations, which I forgot how this one starts.
Well, in this episode, I didn't write much down for this episode. I just thought like it was an okay episode, but like I didn't really add much to like the dynamic of what they were trying to create in the first 2 episodes.
Right. Oh, I remember. This is where it opens with her deciding, or her telling everybody that she's hosting or judging the beauty pageant. And this is a kind of an iconic episode because this is the first burn on Jerry is in the opening, because she's she like accidentally orders too many flowers or something, and she's like, Donna, you're gonna get some, and you're gonna get, and she goes, Jerry, I'm not sure about you yet. The jury's still out, and he just kind of has this look on his face.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Fucking hilarious. But she's like super hyped about judging the Miss Pawnee competition, and she's like, whoever wins is going to represent Pawnee. This is where you start realizing how much pride she really takes in Pawnee. Like it's that and Parks over everything, and like fuck everything else. And she takes a lot of pride in it. It's funny. There's a joke about, because she's like they got to have talent and poise. And Tom's like, the girls from Talent and Poise are going to be there. And Talent and Poise is like a strip club. And then they also mention another strip club called the Glitter Factory. And I was like, after hour spots in Pawnee have the greatest names.
Yeah, he's like, don't go to the Glitter Factory.
Yeah, don't go to the Glitter Factory. Tom may be Pawnee's most connected man after getting a spot as a judge. He like wheels into deals and becomes one of the judges. for the Miss Pawnee competition.
Yeah. He has a
oh,
lot of those
early-
moments throughout the show, really.
Yeah, for sure. There's a part in the beginning of the episode where Dave comes back and he's like talking to Leslie, like kind of trying to ask her out on a date. And Leslie kind of gets turned off because he doesn't know who what's the lady's name?
Ruth Gator,
No, it wasn't Ruth
Ginsburg or
Bader
whatever.
Ginsburg. It was Madeline Albright.
Madeline
'Cause he's like,
Albright,
"What's
yeah.
this, your mom?" And she's like, "Oh, that's funny." And
Oh,
she thinks he's joking, but he's really like, "No, really, is it?" And she's like, "No, that's Madeline Albright." And he's like, "Oh." Oh, it's so funny. When they actually get to the Miss Pawnee competition, it's the first appearance of Jessica Wicks. She's the former Miss Pawnee. She's in like a few episodes later on.
yeah, she ends up getting into Sweet'em shit.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I put Tom does well with older women because he in the Joan Calameza episode, he's like flirting with her, and then he's flirting with Jessica Wicks too in this one. He's like real smooth with like older rich white women and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Oh, there's kind of a dark joke, but there's because they're introducing all the judges of the competition, and there's this old dude
Oh.
named Charles Woolner.
No,
He
yes,
goes,
I about
"I've
wrote
been
this
a
down.
judge." Yeah, he goes, "I've been a judge for 30 years." And then he goes, I made what's her name? He goes, "I made Jessica Wicks." And the camera
Yeah.
points to her,
And
she
that
has
look,
this
dude.
almost traumatized,
Yeah,
like
dude.
disgusted look. And it's like, oh, that's a fucked up joke. So
Yeah.
it's obviously an insinuation that like she slept with him in exchange to win the competition.
Yeah, that I remember seeing that too.
Oh man, there's a funny part where Leslie's like preaching about integrity and not judging based on looks. And then she turns around and it cuts to Tom talking to contestants and like guessing their
Yeah,
breast
dude.
size. He's like double D, C, blah blah blah. It is funny because they're like total opposites, but still like pretty good friends.
And then she like locks him in the room at the end. She's like, "Nah, we're talking about this."
Yeah. There's a funny, it's kind of a missable moment, but there's a part where I think the competition's already started and somebody says something and everybody's like applauding what one of the girls says. And if you look, it shows the judges things and everybody's looking at the stage and applauding, but the old Woolner dude is just staring at Jessica Wick's breasts the whole time. Like he's clapping, but he's directly looking down over her boobs. It's pretty funny. He's just
Throwing
like
some
an old-
shade at the beauty pageant market.
right. So like the eventually we forgot to mention April's in.
I was
the
about to say
pageant
April's in there. Yeah, she wants
because
that.
she thinks she can win $600. So she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to win it." At the beginning, there's even a funny part where she tries to bribe Leslie with like a like Starbucks drink or whatever the hell it was, and Leslie like makes it clear that she's like not gonna give her a win. She's got to earn it. But at some point in the competition, they reveal that the $600 is actually like a $600 coupon for like getting a fence on your house or something like that.
Yeah.
So she's just like, "I quit," and she walks off. And then they do her interview. She does a funny line where she says, "I didn't win, but at least I didn't make any new friendships." And I was like,
Yeah.
that sums up April perfectly. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, there's a cool little observation. So have you ever seen it's been made twice now? There was an original in like the 50s and they remade it later in like I think the 70s or no, it was actually the 90s. They remade it. A movie called 12 Angry Men.
No.
That's this classic movie where it's originally a play, I think, actually like a screen, a play, and it was adapted into a film, and then that film was remade like 40 years later. But it's a film where literally the whole movie takes place in a jury deliberation room, and 12 men have to decide the fate of a kid that may or may not have murdered his father or something like that. And it's a really like iconic film because the whole film is like it's
That sounds
basically a lot
really
of like
good.
racial because the kid's like a Hispanic kid and everybody like wants to say he's guilty, but there's one guy who keeps holding out and he's trying to convince all the other guys that maybe the kid's not guilty. And it's
Yeah.
a really good movie. But the part where Leslie is trying to sway everyone's vote because they're all trying to vote for like the chick that's like the hot chick or whatever. And there's a smart chick that Leslie likes that like is like going to college and you could tell is like Leslie's type of person and she's trying to get people to vote for her. But that scene is actually, I read that it actually was inspired by 12 Angry Men because she's trying to like appeal to their like senses and things like that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they're just like, give it to the hot chick. They
Yep.
rule over Leslie. And yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny.
I'll have to watch that movie. It sounds good.
It's really good. I have it actually. So if you ever want to borrow it, just let me know. But oh, this is the one too. This is Mark and Ann have their first date in this episode. He like comes to her house and eats dinner. But it's funny because
Oh,
Andy's
Andy's there.
outside and it's raining.
Yeah.
And that's when she finds out that he's living in the pit. I think that it's when Anne finds out, and he's trying to Mark is like feels bad, and he's like, maybe we should let him come in. It's raining out there. And eventually they do, but like he's like eating dinner, like they've given him some food, and he's kind of like talking shit. Like it's just so funny. But I've noted that Mark's like super patient. Like most dudes would have been like, all right, I'm out of here. Like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Uh
Trying to prove that he's not what she thought he was.
yeah. Leslie kind of changes her mind about Dave because he comes to the beauty pageant and he walks by the chick that like the hot chick that won the Miss Pawnee pageant. And like he bumps into her and he's like, oh, sorry, sir. Like he like mistakes her for a dude. And I think it kind of like almost turns Leslie on that he like doesn't care about like the superficial beauty, like that he likes,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, smart people or whatever. So that's kind of why she like changes her mind and decides to go on a date with him.
And then he rips off like all the girls' like names.
I put Tom as the king of dating tips that don't work because this is the episode where he says he gives every girl he meets a key to his house. And he's like, it hasn't worked yet, but eventually it's going to work.
I've been robbed 2 times.
Yeah. Oh, man. Let's see. Trivia fun facts I have. Contest judge Woolner got his name from episode director Jason Woolner. Woolner also directed and co-created MTV sketch show Human Giant, which also featured Aziz Ansari, which was a great show. If anybody should, it's a really funny show. People should check out Human Giant. A lot of like pranks and stuff like that. It's really great. Several commentators compared Trish, who is attractive but unintelligent, to untalented to Caitlin Upton, the 2007 Miss South Carolina Teen USA, who made an incoherent response during the Miss Teen USA 2007 pageant. This is her quote. I wrote it down. She put, oh, this is bad.
Yeah, this is rough.
I forgot to write down what the question was, so that's my bad on that. But her answer to whatever it was, I think it was like something about like, why is America great or something weird like that. She put, I personally believe that the US Americans are unable to do so. So it must have, I can't remember what the question just said, unable to do so because, and this is, I quote, because some people out there in our nation don't have maps. And I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the US should help the US or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and Asian countries. So we will be able to build up for our future for our children. So that was her like incoherent response.
Wasn't bad.
Series co-creator Michael Schur also indicated the episode was inspired partially by Carrie Prejean, who was a former Miss California USA, who she was asked about same-sex marriage and was like made a really crazy like anti-gay thing during like the 2009 Miss USA. So it's partially inspired by her too. Immediately after Beauty Pageant was originally broadcast, NBC set up an official Miss Pawnee Beauty Pageant website at misspawnee.com. It included biographies for the judges and competitors, as well as downloadable PDF of Leslie's custom scorecard from the episode, ringtones, band posters, and songs for download and photos. So they made like a fake website just to kind of promote the episode. Awesome. Susan Yeagley, the actor who portrayed Jessica Wicks, also guest starred in like 5 episodes of Rules of Engagement as a character named Tracy. She's also married to Kevin Nealon.
I like Rules of Engagement a lot.
For show. The actress that portrayed Trish, April Eden, also made an appearance as the chair. Have you ever seen the episode of The Office called The Chair Model, where I think Michael becomes obsessed with this girl that he sees in a book that's like a model for a chair he wants to buy? No. And she's in the episode. She's the model in the chair. She's not actually acting in the episode. It's just you see a picture of her in the episode. But it's hilarious that she. Oh, and the last piece of trivia. This is the only episode in the series without a Ron Swanson appearance. Ron makes no appearance whatsoever in this episode. My overall thoughts, I said, this one kind of veered back more towards Leslie character development. Like it didn't develop as much of like the smaller characters really. It focused a lot of just Leslie, which is good. I think that's a good thing. Overall, it was a decent episode though. Not bad.
I think it shined some good light on Mark, like you said earlier. And then, but yeah, when my like final thought on the episode was not that much to go on.
Yeah,
Really,
it's
like
not
it's
the
just kind
greatest
of like,
episode.
yeah.
Definitely maybe the weakest of the first 6 episodes of the season. The next one is actually my favorite of the first 6 we're doing on this episode. It was Practice Date.
I love the secret game
Oh yeah.
where they're trying to dig up dirt on each other.
It's so good. Okay, so this is Practice Date, directed by Alex Hardcastle and written by Harris Whittles. So this is the episode that opens up with the Dex Hart sex scandal on the news. They're talking about the councilman Dex Hart is like doing gay sex and stuff like that, and there's that funny thing. And then because he's like, oh, I was supposed to do this, but I was actually in Brazil having cave sex with like 2 guys or something like that. And there's a funny line where like, man, I bet Tom goes, man, I bet cave sex is great. And then she's like, Leslie's like, why? And he goes, because of the echoes and the humidity. Oh man. Leslie ignores Dex Hart's scandalous activities and she's like, I just like focusing on his policies. And I was like, that's one of the few negative examples of like her passion for politics. She'll like ignore if somebody's a
Yeah.
decent politician, she'll ignore like if they do dark things, kind of.
Yeah. And that's where they get like the idea from the digging up dirt on each other too. He's like, I would never want to run for office. Mark does.
Right.
And Tom's like, oh, I'm squeaky clean. You don't got to worry about me.
Yeah. There's a part where Tom says, oh, he mentions caves again. I don't remember what he says to prompt this, but he says, you can fly to Brazil, just don't enter the cave.
Yeah.
The Jerry roasting trope.
Was he's talking about like, he goes, you can't get any dirt on me. He's like, you're married and you hit on everyone I see.
Yeah. The Jerry roasting trope really starts up in this episode. April says him having a friend on Facebook is surprising, and Dave reveals he has a record for public urination.
Well, yeah,
just randomly, he's like, don't look up Jerry. He's like, he's got I forget the code. He says the code, and then he goes public urination, and Jerry looks like super embarrassed.
Well, he's like,
Gary and Donna are definitely getting a lot more screen time.
He's like, I said I didn't want to play.
Yeah, and it was towards the end. Yeah, I definitely noted that too. That's one of the best moments in the episode. Yeah, Jerry and Donna getting more screen time this episode, so that's dope. I wrote Louis C.K. plays the awkward and gullible role better or perfectly. Great temporary love interest for Leslie. I wrote Leslie and Dave are like awkward teenagers on like their first date. Like they don't really know how to like act around each other.
Yeah, well, that's when she goes with like Anne on the first date. It goes south, and they end up getting drunk, and she goes over to Dave's house.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Writers have a great way of subtly building smaller side characters, like with the dirt game. It's like a good way to build everybody up at one time. It's funny.
Well, then like the best scene in the whole thing is when Mark comes in. He's like, Jerry's adopted mom got busted for possession of marijuana.
That's literally, I wrote that's probably Mark's best moment in the whole series. Like as far as like pure laugh, like I remember when I first saw that, I was like laughing my ass. Like he goes, oh no, he immediately goes, oh no, oh Jerry, I'm so sorry, and he goes, this is why I didn't want. He goes, yeah, I didn't want to play. That when they dig up the picture of Tom in the Taliban robe, but he's like, I was supposed to be a Jedi. The edited picture is like real terrible, but it's even funnier. I think this is the first time they mention Ron having 2 ex-wives and a mom named Tammy, right?
Yeah.
This is where they first bring that up too.
And you find out about Duke Silver.
Yeah, in the end of this episode. It's a great moment. Leslie's list of bad dates. Oh, remember I was talking about how they have that trope where different characters will list off things, and it almost seems like they're improvising it. Leslie has hers where she's like listing off all the bad dates. A guy tried to steal Leslie's teeth during the movie. She continued to see him. She continued to see him after that. This is the first episode to explicitly state that Wendy married Tom for a green card.
Yeah, because that's his dirt before. Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going to tell anybody. And then, also there's a fucked up moment where Ron says, I'll have your wife tonight. And it almost foreshadows, because remember, there's spoiler alert, but in future episodes,
he'd be going after dates, it. Yeah.
And then I also wrote Mark accidentally revealing to Jerry that he is adopted is maybe Mark's funniest moment in the whole series.
His reaction, like you said, his reaction is perfect. Like, oh no.
Oh no. Oh, Jerry, so sorry. I'm so sorry. Ron best Tom, only to be bested by Tom in the end, learning about Duke Silver. This is the debut of Duke, one of the best recurring tropes in sitcom history, in my opinion. Duke Silver is
Yeah,
like one of the best, like legendary things. It's so funny.
the way he
And they,
talks and the mic and stuff, like
oh
to the
yeah,
ladies.
I wrote some of the lines down. He said, "It's been a real gift making Sonic love to you tonight." The name of his album is Memories of Now. So great. There's a bunch more, but yeah, just him bantering with the crowd is one of the best parts too. Oh, there's a part where Leslie, because the whole thing of this, the main story of this episode, really, even though the funnest part is the dirt game, the main plot of the episode is that Leslie and Anne are doing a practice date so Leslie can get ready to have a good first date with Dave. So Anne's purposefully like presenting scenarios that were like a bad date to see how Leslie reacts to him, just to kind of get Leslie used to the idea that you might have bad dates. But they
Like
end
the
up getting
worst
like
date
drunk
possible.
together. And Leslie and Anne always have these great drunk conversation scenes. They have it in like the first episode, and I think maybe even in the season finale of the first season. But yeah, it's just a good thing that's recurring.
Yeah, and that's when she goes over to Dave's, and then Dave pulls the smooth move the next day. He's like, "Well, I guess we can go on our
Second
second date tonight."
Yeah. I wrote down that April ultimately was the ultimate winner of the dirt game, and Jerry was the ultimate loser.
April gets all pissed off because no one's.
No one. She's like, I can't remember what she says, but she rattles off a bunch of like dirt that she actually has.
Well, when she talks about driving the lawnmower through the mall.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, it's a pretty good episode. Probably my favorite of the first 6 episodes that we watched so far
Yeah.
of this season. I had some trivia. Episode writer Harris Whittles. So do you remember in a later season there's a part where they
Yeah.
go to visit animal control?
Yeah, he also pops up in some of the he's the one who wants the topless park.
Yeah. So yeah, he's the writer, and he ends up being one of my favorite like guest roles is the animal guys. I can't wait till we get to that. But sadly, that guy passed away in 2015 from a drug overdose.
He's also the one who wrote the book Humble Brag.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
So he coined the term humble brag and like wrote
That's
a book.
dope. He was originally. So have you seen Master of None? The Aziz
Yeah.
Ansari show. He was originally supposed to play Arnold, Aziz's best friend, the big guy.
Yeah.
That role was originally written for Harris, but then obviously he passed away in 2015 from a drug overdose. So they replaced him with Eric from Tim and Eric's Awesome Show. The sex scandal involving Dex Hart mirrored the real life 2009 scandal of South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford, who publicly admitted to a long-time extramarital affair with an Argentinian woman. The concept of Duke Silver was conceived after show creator Michael Schur learned that Nick Offerman could really play the sax. After the episode, NBC created an official Duke Silver website, which included a biography, a discography, reviews, gallery, tour schedule, and booking information for the fictional band. That's pretty dope. This episode marked the first time Jerry showed more character as opposed to just appearing and saying a few lines. He was originally cast because show creators liked actor Jim O'Heir and figured they'd figure out his character later. After the scene when Mark inadvertently reveals Jerry was adopted, the writers built upon that joke and established Jerry as the coworker the rest of the department picks on. Schur said after practice day, we realize that's who he is. He's the guy who wants to put his head down and get his pension, but is asking for it all the time. And that from that point on, he becomes the whipping boy of the show from this episode forward, officially.
He has
the
like
last bit. My bad. Go ahead.
he has like some of the best like stuff throughout the show.
For
And
sure.
then like the development at the end. I like how they kind of give him like, I guess spoiler alert, but they kind of give him a little happy ending and stuff
for
at the end of the show.
For
And
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
let him
I
get his
love
roses
ending.
and move on.
Yeah, I love his ending. This is the first appearance of Perd Hapley, the news guy. This is a great thing. He's in a lot of episodes too. A
Yeah.
lot of fucking episodes. Perd Hapley. He's just kind of like the dim-witted newscaster. Overall, oh yeah, I'd say this episode, instead of just focusing on Leslie, this episode really stretched its time between everybody.
Yeah.
Like everybody got some development. The big Jerry development of him, his role being established was really dope. The moments of the Duke Silver moments are legendary, where he discovers Duke Silver and he's talking to him is just it's
Yeah.
just
Donna has some good moments even in this episode.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. She gets more and more lines. They just do a great job of building characters, man. It's like one of the strong suits of this show, really.
Well, especially like Donna and Jerry for sure, because like they were just kind of like nothing. You got a lot of lines from Aziz. You got some decent lines from April.
Right.
Ron and Leslie obviously were big characters, and so were Mark.
Right.
It was Mark.
For sure.
So
For sure.
they just ease those two in like nice, like without it being like too abrupt. Because it'd be kind of hard to like really follow that many main characters right off the bat.
Off the bat, yeah, because that's what you think about it. You've got obviously Leslie, you've got Rashida Jones as Anne, you've got Tom, Ron, Mark at first. Mark's definitely a main character at first. Andy, April, Jerry, and Donna, right? Am I forgetting
Yeah.
any like main characters? I mean,
So
obviously
that's
there's
like the
more
crew.
later.
That's like the
Yeah,
Parks and Rec crew. Yeah.
for sure. So yeah, 9 characters is a lot. You kind of have to slowly sprinkle your character development where you
Especially
can
with only
do
like
it.
a 6-episode first season.
Right. They only have the 6 episodes. They really had to, yeah.
This is like only the 10th episode of the show.
Yeah. It's nuts. Okay. So yeah, that was practice date, the 4th episode of season 2. Now we're moving on to episode 5, Sister City, which is another really classic episode.
Yeah.
Directed by the showrunner Michael Schur and written by Alan Yang, who actually who Aziz Ansari co-created Master of None with.
Oh, nice.
So that's pretty dope. So yeah, this episode starts with them. They're getting ready because their sister country or whatever
Yeah, their sister city from Venezuela.
from Venezuela is coming to visit them. Like officials from their parks department is coming to visit them, and so they're getting the courtyard ready. And the one of the officials is Fred Armisen, who's like a really funny actor. He's like the main guy, but he's like super hilarious. But anyway, like during the opening scene, there's a part where it's a weird part. So during that opening scene, it's Leslie talking to Donna, Jerry, Tom, and April, and like they're decorating everything, and she's explaining why it's important that everything go well. And that you can just, if you look in the background, Ron's just like creepily like staring through a window, drinking coffee, watching them do it. Like they don't point it out or anything. It's just some weird background observation I made. And I was just like, I wonder how much they do shit like that, and I just don't realize it.
Yeah, because he was just like chilling.
Yeah. Chilling there. The opening continues the trope of Pawnee's Dark Past, because they always do like the murals on the walls, and they always mean something fucked up. Oh man. April has a line near the beginning. She says, "My mom's Puerto Rican. That's why I'm so lively and colorful." Legendary.
She has a great episode in this episode.
She does. This is like her kind of her first big episode. Leslie calling the Rock and Roll Bowling Alley to regrettably inform them of a cancellation is so on brand for her, because she's like building up she's thinking that they're like make or break on this appearance, and they're probably like, okay, whatever, lady. When the guys get there, they mistake they're kind of like archaic in like the sense that like they believe like that. So they show up and they're like, oh, we're gonna have a party for you, and they look at all the girls that are standing there, and they see Donna, April, and I think Anne sitting there, and they go, we'll take the big black one or the big dark one or whatever. And I just thought that was like the funniest thing for Donna to be the popular choice. She's like, oh, I'm not surprised. She's like, I've been to Venezuela. I do very well over there. It's so fucking hilarious. But she plays it so well. I'm just like, oh yeah, I know. Like, I know I'm bad over there. When they're at the party, there's weirdly just a random cardboard cutout of Larry Bird, like a real big cutout of Larry Bird just randomly in the background.
He said,
It's funny. The gold-plated gun they gave him as a gift was super dope. They gave Pawnee like a gold-plated like
from Chavez.
From Hugo Chavez. That's like a big recurring thing in this episode is them praising Hugo Chavez. And then in return they give him a gift back, but it's just Kernston rubber nipples and like what was it? Fucking
I think it's like
cornstarch or corn syrup.
corn
Yeah, like
oil,
sweet
corn
corn
syrup.
syrup. Yeah, it's so funny. The visitors like look at Pawnee basically like a third world country. And it's funny because at the beginning, Leslie was like, they might be a little poor and they might be this like she completely thought they were going to be like the nice rich place that was getting visited. But they're kind of like disgusted and they're like, your country is like they take it. There's at one point where she takes him to parks and they tell them at the beginning about the pit problem that they're having. And then later she's like trying to show off some of the parks and they mistake like the nicest park in their town for the pit. They're like, yeah, this is awful. And she's like, no, this is like one of our best parks. And he was like, what? He's like, why are your trees so small? He's like, in our country, in our parks, the trees are huge. He's like, you can drive through them. They're caves. He's just like dunking on Pawnee. It's hilarious.
Well, and then they have the people come and like talk and they're like witnessing it.
Yeah.
And the guy's getting wild. He's like, where are the police?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so
and that's where
funny.
like the big meme, like it's like
It's
a big
Lawrence,
meme now.
isn't it? Isn't it Lawrence?
Yeah, it's Lawrence.
Yeah, he's like throwing shit at them and he's like, where's the police?
And that's like the big meme scene comes now, like straight
Jail.
to jail.
Straight to jail. That's and that's also remember the trope, the list trope of the improvise, because Fred
Yeah.
Armisen's famous for improvising. He has like multiple shows where that's kind of the idea is him just kind of like improvising. He's the king.
He's like
of it.
undercooked fish, jail.
She's like surprisingly
Overcooked chicken.
surprisingly
Also
jail.
jail.
Undercook, overcook. That's what he says. Oh, well, when they give the gun to them, Ron fawns over it. He really likes it. He's like, man, I really hate Hugo Chavez. He's like, but look at this gun. And Fred Armisen too. This is one of the out of guest appearances where they only got one episode with that character, because I don't think that guy comes back ever in the show.
Yeah.
It may be the best like single guest appearance
Yeah.
because he just kills it. When she's taking them to the parks, there's a part where she's talking to them and they're all like the three dudes are all cramped in the back seat and they're like super big dudes and they're like, what the fuck? I wrote down that Lawrence is a menace because he's like causing shit. Oh, there was a funny trope in this episode where they mistake, because Aziz is a darker skinned person, they mistake him for like a servant boy. And they keep like being rude and like making him go get stuff, but they're also tipping him like hundreds of dollars, so he's just taking it. There's a funny part where they all ask for candy bars and he's like, here's a Butterfinger for you, here's 100 grand for you. And the last guy, he's like, odd request, he's like, but Nestle Crunch Bar with all of the Rice Krispies removed. And then they tip him like hundreds of dollars for it. It's so funny. And then I wrote down the list of things that put you in jail is great. Leslie only gets mean or nasty when people disrespect Pawnee. There's that part where they're kind of like roasting them and she like speaks up. There's that whole scene. So
well, then
yeah,
April has like her little dude that she's like,
there's a dude that's in love with April and he's like, I'll kill people for you. And he's like, come live with me and blah, blah, blah. And she's just like, no, like she'll like entertain him just enough to piss him off almost. It's hilarious.
well, then at the end of the episode, there's like they have like a webcam with her and she's like at his house.
She's in there. And then at the very
with
end,
like
she goes,
armed
oh, yeah.
guards.
She's like, oh yeah, Donna's here too. And Donna's just like, hey, and she's like getting like her like I think like her fingernails done and getting served drinks and stuff. It's great. Oh, there's a funny part. So she eventually gets fed up of them kind of clowning on Pawnee and calling it trash, and she speaks up and kind of offends them, but then like goes to apologize. And they come in the next day and they offer her the money it would take to fill up the pit. And she accepts it because at first she's just like, okay, this is just a gift of theirs, blah, 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 whatever. There's a really funny part too, where after they give her that, it's like they give her the money so they feel like she owes them. So he takes, I'm guaranteeing it was improvised, but he takes pins from her desk and gives them to the other guys right before they leave. It made me laugh so hard. It was just a subtle little thing. It was like a power trip.
Well, then they try to make her like say that she loves Chavez and stuff.
Yeah, so that's what the next day they have her like show that they gave money, and she makes them say Viva Chavez, which she gives in at first, but then eventually she realizes that they're still talking shit about her on the video camera. So then she like rips up the check and she's like fuck. She doesn't say it, but she's basically like fuck Chavez, and it's like this big thing, and then they leave, and it's kind of a cool.
Imagine
moment
if she would have said fuck Chavez.
That'd been dope. It's a big moment for Leslie because she stands up for herself and she defends what she loves and shit like that. I wrote Donna and April should have had a whole episode in Venezuela. That would have
Would
been
have saved
perfect.
us 5 seasons if she would have just said yes and filled in that pit.
I know, right? Holy shit. Yeah, Donna and April in Venezuela should have had its own episode. It would have been perfect. Trivia and fun facts. I didn't have very many for this. I wrote that the episode writer was the co-creator of Master of None with Aziz Ansari. Fred Armisen mentioning Chavez is interesting because Armisen portrayed Hugo Chavez in a Saturday Night Live sketch. The uniform that the visitors wear includes a fictional seal designed by Michael Schur, which included an image of Chavez, machine guns, an oil tower, a lion, and a parrot. April states that her mother is Puerto Rican. In real life, actress Aubrey Plaza has a Puerto Rican father. So she actually is part Puerto Rican.
I could see it.
Overall thoughts, great episode, pretty much 50-50 as far as like just being focused on funny punchlines and like a little bit of character development thrown in.
Yeah, there was a lot of hilarious moments in that episode.
Definitely just kind of like a funny, like gut buster episode.
Well, it's the type of episode that if like you're randomly scrolling through like normal TV and it's on, you're like, I may just catch this real quick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's definitely, I guarantee that's another one that's going to be on like the top of like best list if you're ranking episodes of Parks and Recreation. All right. So
especially in the earlier
5.
seasons.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Amongst the first few. All right. That was episode 5. And now we're going to do the last episode we're going to cover on this episode. Kaboom, episode 6, directed by Charles McDougall, written by Aisha. I'm sorry if I mispronounced this. Muhaharar. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Didn't intend to. The way this episode starts is funny because it's Leslie hearing all of her credit card charges.
Oh yeah.
And there's a funny one at the end where it's like $120 to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And Tom hears it and he's kind of like roasting her. And he's like, "Oh yeah," and he goes, "Yeah, I forget what she says." He's like, "What team? What are they called? Teams or fucking houses?"
Yeah.
He's like, "What house were you in?" I forget. I think she might say Gryffindor or something. And then he goes, "What did you major in?" And she just kind of has this shit-eating grin and goes, "Potions." She's a huge Harry Potter fan, I guess.
Yeah, she's like, they give you a wand.
Yeah, she's like, they give you a wand. And as she's explaining it, she realizes how dorky she sounds. But that's a funny opening bit.
I'm on that shit.
So yeah. Okay, so the whole basis of the episode is that it starts off, they go to Eagleton, which is a town that gets referenced a lot later on and becomes a bigger deal. But they go to Eagleton because there's a company called Kaboom that does like, they build playgrounds in a day. So they go to volunteer to kind of learn more about Kaboom. And the leader of Kaboom is Paul Scheer, who you might know from like The League. And he was a human giant too. He's in a lot of, if you see him, you'll know him from like 50 different things. He's like one of the funniest, like comedic TV actors to me. He's like super good in The League.
Yeah.
And I wrote that in the first 6 episodes, it's crammed with like great guest appearances like Louis C.K., Paul Scheer, Fred Armisen, Mo Collins.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like really good, funny comedic actors crammed in there. So yeah, this episode, they're at the beginning, they're like helping them build this park or whatever. The Kaboom shirts kind of reminded me of the way the colors were of do you remember like the old school Nickelodeon game shows like Wild and Crazy Kids?
Yeah.
Legends of the Hidden Temple. They would all the teams would have like a really bright red shirt or and that's what the Kaboom shirts kind of reminded me of, like Legends of the Hidden Temple and shit. That Paul Scheer guy plays like a really good, like cringy, overly enthusiastic dork. Because he's
I love at the end of the episode, he's pretty much like,
he's like, that doesn't exist. It's so funny.
Because she calls him like 40 times.
So like while it's showing all the people from the Parks Department helping out building this park, and it reveals that Andy's there volunteering. And there's a funny part where he goes, the key to volunteering, pockets, because he's like stealing food and shit, like hot dogs and cookies and shit, and loading up on it. And he's talking about how he does that often. He'll like go to volunteering events to like steal food. And he's naming off like how different volunteering things like had good food. And he ends it by going, suicide hotline, surprisingly lame spread. I wrote that he's kind of like Leslie in the sense that they both misinterpret like the gravity of a situation. Whereas like he treats everything like it's no big deal, even things he should. And Leslie treats everything like a really big deal, even though some
Yeah.
things she should just kind of like let roll
Brush
off her
off.
shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of an interesting like character opposite thing. Oh, Andy moves out of the pit in this episode. This is kind of where he starts his like ascent in a sense.
Well, he doesn't move out. Isn't this episode where he gets crushed in the pit?
Yeah, but he reveals that he was coming back to get stuff and he fell asleep. He's like, the only reason I was still in there, I think he really did move, but he's coming back to like get his shit. And he was like, I laid down because I was feeling tired, so I decided to take a nap.
He
But
said,
he
I saw a cereal box I hadn't read yet.
Yeah, he said I saw a cereal box, I hadn't read it and got tired and took a nap. But yeah, he does move out of the pit, so this is kind of where he starts his slow climb towards being who he becomes towards the end of the series.
This is the episode 2 where he says what I was talking about earlier, where he gets like crushed in the pit and he's at the hospital and he thinks like Anne's like falling for him again. And the pit works in mysterious ways.
When they're still at that kaboom thing, there's a couple parts where Ron gets annoyed by Paul Shear's character because like he'll walk by and like tap him on the sides or like to say something weird to him, and Ron's just like, get away from me. He's like, I don't like you, dude. Oh man. When like, so what happens is like Leslie gets inspired by Kaboom because they literally do build a park in a day. So she's like, I wish we could do that with our pit, because they come home from doing the Kaboom thing and they're all jazzed up and they see the pit next to Anne's house and they're like, this is something I'd like to Kaboom. So that's what the kind of emphasis of the episode is like Leslie's like, well, why don't we just do this? Like, why don't we just fill this thing in? Like, let's stop asking for, and it kind of is cool because it questions her character as far as like how much she loves like bureaucracy and like things like that.
Yeah, because Mark goes to her and he's like, better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah, because they have a meeting the next day because she wants ideas from the crew about basically like, what can we do to get this moved forward faster? And there's a funny part where she goes to erase the whiteboard, but none of the shit's coming off of it. And she slowly stops doing it. And before even looking back, she goes, Jerry, did you use permanent marker again on the whiteboard? And he's like, I'm sorry. And it made like literally rewatching it, it made me like belly laugh. My belly was like shaking, just like, it was so funny. Like the look on his face when he realizes how bad he fucked up was so good. But yeah, so
classic
in that
Jerry
meeting, Mark pulls Leslie aside and he's like, do you really want to do this? And she's like, yeah. And he goes, then don't ask permission. He goes, ask for forgiveness. And there's a funny line where she goes, okay, so who do I ask to not ask permission? And it's funny because she's like so used to bureaucracy that she doesn't get what he's like trying to tell her. And he's like, no, just rent a backhoe and just go do this. Like, don't ask permission. So basically she gets juiced up to do that. And she like gets Anne to kind of help her. And the next day she does that. She rents a backhoe. And there's a funny part where she like gets custom hard hats made that say kick ass, but Anne grabs the one that says kick and she grabs one that says ass. So backwards, it just says ass kick. And then it's just really funny. And so like she rents the backhoe and like literally the first big thing of dirt that they drop lands over Andy, who's laying down and sleeping in the pit, and like hurts him really bad. And it's just really funny. And so yeah, he's in the hospital.
Then it hurts him really bad. It's just really funny.
Really funny. Really great. Andy getting hurt is a good trope throughout the whole show.
Yeah.
Definitely. I wrote that him getting buried was the perfect unexpected moment. Because you don't expect it. It drops the first, and then because they build it earlier by saying he's like, I moved out of the pit. Yeah. So then when you're like, what the fuck? Why is he still there? It's just a great little written moment. But yeah, he's in the hospital from that point forward. I wrote that this probably has his most character development so far this episode. This was a really important episode for him. So he's in the hospital and he thinks that he's going to get back with Anne because she's taking care of him, but she kind of reveals that's where the pit works in mysterious ways line comes, which is really great. But she reveals to him, she's like, oh no, we're not getting back together and I'm still with Mark. So at that point, and he's like, what does Mark have that I don't have? And she's like, are you kidding me? Like literally everything. She's like, a job, a car. She rattles off like 20 things. And that basically causes Andy to where you find out he's actively looking to sue the Parks Department for the incident because Leslie didn't have permission to do everything. So it's kind of like they're majorly at fault. And there's the guest appearance, the lawyer the Parks Department lawyer. It's H. John Benjamin. It's the guy who does Bob's Burgers and
Archer.
And he's also in a few episodes of Master of None too. He's a really funny like voice actor and just straight up actor.
He plays like the can dude in Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah. He's been acting for a while. He's like one of those good character actors that you always randomly, but he's kind of blowing up right now because of Bob's Burgers. He's more popular than he's ever been, low-key.
I love Bob's Burgers.
We're gonna have to probably do that one soon, so that way I can finally just get into it and watch it. And I'm sure I'll like it.
Movie just dropped recently,
and then I could watch that, the show. So like he's the lawyer and he's like advising Leslie basically not to apologize to him. And it's funny because that's really like at like high level like legal matters. They really advise you to like be careful about like not apologizing because it can imply guilt. So that's what he's trying to tell Leslie, like, hey, don't you say sorry or any of those things. So there's really a funny scene where like Leslie's like trying not to apologize to him, but it's like eating her up inside not apologize. But yeah, that's where you find out that he's suing, and because his lawyer shows up, and at that point they're like, we can't talk anymore or whatever. So she's like trying to figure out what to do, because if he sues, then she's gonna lose her job probably, and they're gonna shut down.
Oh shit!
You know what I mean? All that shit.
Yeah, and then that's when Anne convinces him to come over.
Yeah, there's a funny part where she calls Andy's phone and he won't answer, and I was like, of course he has the psych out voicemail. The hello?
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. Like Andy's the perfect guy to do that. I also wrote that his lawyer kind of looks like the big guy from Penn and Teller, because he's like a real big, kind of like chunky dude. But yeah, Anne tricks Andy into coming over, like to where almost like he thinks that they're getting back together or something, and he shows up like butt ass naked. He like opens the door thinking they're gonna hook up.
Well, that's that scene in real life.
I have that written down.
He's supposed to be wearing underwear or whatever.
Yeah,
but he actually went full on front.
After like 4 or 5 takes, he had, because he had nude colored underwear on.
Yeah,
to make it look like he was fully naked, and like after 4 or 5 takes, he figured like, fuck it, I'll just, just to pop it, just to make everybody laugh, I'll take him actually off. So he busted through the door and was actually naked. And then I wrote too, because NBC sent him a letter kind of scolding him over that and being like, you need to take this matter serious, because the next time something like this happens, like we'll take serious actions against you. And he said he laughed at it so much that he framed it in like his office at home, the letter of NBC scolding him, which I thought was kind of a funny touch. So they basically, Leslie and Andy have a sit down. Andy reveals that the reason why he's suing is because he wants money to impress Anne to get her back. So the only reason he's even doing it is because he's trying to get Anne back. And basically they come to an agreement, and they go meet with the Parks Department lawyer. And a part of the agreement is that the pit get filled up immediately, because he's already hurt himself like 2 or 3 times in the pit. Yeah. So they kind of like school the system and use the opportunity to get the plot filled in, and he gets a job too. There's a funny part too where one of his demands in the settlement is he's like, and I want to be, what does he say, first string
starting inside linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts.
Starting inside linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts. And it's just hilarious because Andy's like delusional. But yeah, he ends up getting a job. And at the end of the episode, it's kind of a big moment for the series. The pit becomes a plot. It gets filled in.
Yeah.
So from at that point, they kind of have to stop referring to it as a pit, and it becomes the plot. It still takes a while for it to become a park, but it's a big moment for it. And it's a good end to the first quarter of this second season.
Yeah, it is.
The show. There's, and also too, a cool moment at the end is where Anne kind of realizes that the reason why he filled it up was because he loves. Well, the reason why Andy filled up the thing, like helped fill up the pit and didn't sue, was because he loves Anne, and he knows.
Yeah, he's like, you always hated this pit.
Yeah, he goes, you always hated this pit. Yep, it's just pretty funny. Trivia for this episode: only episode in this entire series that doesn't feature April. April's not in any bit of this episode. And I wrote on the Chris Pratt thing about how they actually wrote the scene because Pratt quote loves taking his clothes off, and then he did the first few takes in flesh-colored underwear before taking them off to prank Poehler and Rashida Jones. This was something I didn't know. Kaboom is a real-life charitable organization that builds playgrounds in locations all over the U.S. Parks and Recreation included the charity in the episode, as a part of a campaign called I Participate, sponsored by Entertainment Industry Foundation. The campaign involves more than 60 shows on NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, and several other networks, all of which spotlighted real-life charities to encourage volunteerism. So Kaboom was a real charity.
That is pretty cool.
Pretty dope. And the last little dumb
they seem to do a decent amount of stuff like callbacks to like what they believe in so far in this.
This show is a really good as far as it's funny, but it also kind of gives you a nice little message too and encourages you to kind of be a good person. The neck pillow brace that Andy wears at his meeting with the city attorney, Scott and Leslie, is the same neck pillow brace Leslie wore after she fell in the pit in the pilot episode.
Oh,
so they brought that same prop back. So I thought this episode wasn't the strongest in terms of like funny. There was some moments, but it was an important episode for the
series. Like you said, a lot of character development, a lot of stuff in there.
For show. And then I did overall thoughts. I did some bullet points. So overall, the 6 episodes I put, the season went into overdrive so far, developing not just Leslie, but everybody.
Yeah.
That was like a big thing, obviously. Like they really start making you fall in love with these characters. And
they started leaning into everybody else and
for sure.
Developing Donna and Jerry so far a lot.
Yeah. Big deals. Yeah. Developing relationships between the characters, friendships and love interests and things like that.
Yeah, like Andy and Leslie got a lot closer.
Yeah. Because she kind of almost becomes a mentor to Andy in a way, in a similar sense that she does for April too, which is kind of a funny thing I never thought about. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. They did a great job steering away from Michael Scotting Leslie. Because she wasn't as dumb or like unlikable or cringy, but more just like she had flaws, but they were like likable flaws, understandable human flaws. She became more of a human character as opposed to like, why would anybody like this person? Because that's how Michael Scott is in The Office. Like, why would you not quit this job after a week after dealing with this dude?
Yeah, for sure.
Another great guest spots throughout the first 6 episodes. Like we listed.
Yeah, they did. Earlier. They did have some big
guest spots. And then I put smart decision to end the first quarter of season 2 with the landmark moment of filling the pit. Because that's obviously the whole impetus of the entire series is the pit. So that was a big moment of like, oh, okay, this show's like building towards things.
Yeah, especially like right now.
Yeah.
Because they do kind of veer away from like that being the main thing at a certain point. But
yeah, it almost becomes a plot where it's like, hey, remember this? Like this was the thing that was important to us at one point.
Yeah, that's what got us all like on the same page.
Yeah, so that's pretty dope. So yeah, I mean, season 2 so far really good. Probably a better 6 episodes than the entire first season. But obviously, the first season had to do a lot of legwork and like just showing us who these people are and introducing.
Like it was a 6 episodes.
Pilot. They didn't know if they were going to get a season 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So that was episode 2 of the Show Files, Parks and Recreation. Hope you guys liked it. We'll probably be doing episode 3 within a week or so. We'll probably do the next 6 episodes or whatever. We'll figure it out. I already got
2 of them down too, so I'll be.
So you already got 2 of them down, so that's even better. So yeah, all right, ladies and gents, that's the end of the show.